Sometimes people attempt to overwrite shows with newer versions, and I don't think that's actually very possible. Gundam 00 is substantially different from Gundam Wing after all, but it does hit a number of the same beats. But what can a show from 1995 show us yet that we might not have examined? I don't particularly believe that you can overwrite another show entirely. Obviously, Brotherhood and Full Metal Alchemist are two very different shows from each other, in spite of being very similar thematically and storyline wise, but there's good things to be gleaned from both of them. Likewise, just because Gundam Seed exists doesn't mean that the original Mobile Suit Gundam isn't still relevant and watchable. Matter of fact, I think the original Mobile Suit Gundam is still very watchable and still relevant, especially compared to Gundam Seed. Though there are interesting things you can take away from both of them if you're willing to sift through some of the strange design choices that they were made with. But more to the point, what about Gundam Wing still stands out? So a long time ago, a show called Gundam Wing hit American shores and had a pretty large effect on a young prof. Being a pacifist and coming from a family and church of them, seeing that put to the test on the small screen was something that I didn't think was ever actually going to happen. So I collected all the tapes and figures and some of the model kits and watched them over and over and over again. The original Gundam show, which came on afterwards, got bounced off of the air after 9/11, and suddenly we all started talking about terrorism and how great and good it was to go to war against this very nebulous enemy that we in the States had inadvertently created to fight the Russians. Whoops. Well, it's 18 years later and the war in the Middle East hasn't ended. But Gundam Wing fell on the wayside, and in some people's minds was replaced entirely by Gundam 00, which tackled terrorism and warfare and ending it in a much more present and perhaps learned way. I'd called Gundam 00 Gundam Wing for a post 9/11 world fairly often myself, noting the similarities, but now as we're entering the dawn of a new decade and Gundam 00 is over 10 years old, what does Gundam Wing still have to teach us? I touched on the pacifism aspect already, so I'll leave that one by the wayside, but consider this. The premise of Gundam Wing is that a group of people who could uncharitably be called terrorists are fighting against a group of ultra-wealthy people in the Oz organization and the Rockefeller Foundation who put their blood and guts on the line against endless expendable legions and, later on, completely unmanned drones. What about this sounds like the world that we're living in today? We're already seeing the world getting wrecked from all corners by out-of-touch, near to, or actually sociopathic rich people. People with literally more money than God if their bank accounts get compared to the Catholic churches. We're seeing drone warfare being the primary means of killing people without any real repercussions. It's amazing to think that Gundam Wing is one of the few anime in existence that I think really touches on both of these aspects. Sure, Nadesco has drones in use, and obviously Gundam 00 has the same themes, but Wing was released in 1995. Has our world really not changed that much since then? I think Gundam Wing is actually more relevant than ever in the face of rising income inequality and a growing class of people who are considered just to be pawns in an aristocratic game. The show makes a pretty hard stand about this and blatantly says that the best thing to do about them is to wreck their shit any way you can. We're not quite at build colossal war machines and launch them from space colonies levels, but we're being pushed in a direction very similar to that. And while the drones that we see used allegedly for our own good don't have beam rifles and ion shields attached to them, they have a worryingly high body count already. God, did you know that kids in American war theaters are afraid of blue skies because that's when the drones are sent out? That's more fucked up than anything even Gundam wants to touch on. Gundam Wing, I think, is more relevant than ever in our current era, in spite of Gundam 00's attempts to overwrite it in people's minds with better writing and admittedly more appealing designs. The world is starting to reflect it a lot more than I would like, and maybe it's always been like this and Wing was trying to warn us, or maybe it's just a strange set of serendipity, but here's hoping we take a few lessons from it and curb the similarities before it's too late. You know, it's funny, I try and do these editorials to kind of make a stand or a point about something and not just be butts, farts all the time and making stupid jokes at the expense of other anime, but every time I come up with one of these, it really makes me consider the world I live in. I just get depressed. So I guess I'll see you for the next one, and hopefully I'll come up with something less depressing in the interim.